You yourself, like, you posted tons about how you wanted to get into boxing and wanted to be in one of these events, and you did actually sign up to compete in one of them, right?
Yeah, yeah. Basically, so I was always in Keemstar's DMs, being like, "Oh, get me a fight, get me a fight." And about 2 weeks before, it's 17 days before the Misfits '07 KSI with Joe Fournier, it's midnight, and I get a message from Keemstar, and it was like, "Where are you from?" And I was like, "London." And he was like, "How heavy are you?" And I was like, "230 pounds." Um, and he was like, "Great, you can fight Louis Nesta at Wembley Arena on the 13th of May." And I was just like,
What?
"Oh shit!" The worst thing is that at the time I was like 10 kilos heavier, powerlifting, just lifting weights all the time. Never done a bit of cardio, like literally never. Had never been fit in my life. And I just, when I woke my dad up, I was like, "Dad, listen, mate, this has happened." And he was like, "What are you on about? You can't fight. You're not fit enough. There's no way you're doing it." And I was like, "Mate, I've got to do it." And I told and it was like my dad was actually angry at me because he was like, like, you're an idiot." Do you know what I mean? And he's done 27 amateur boxing fights, so he's like properly into it, or has been into it. And I was like, and I didn't really sleep that night. I woke up at 7 o'clock the next morning and went for a 4 mile run, and it was horrendous. But I told my brother, and my brother was like, "Archie, you're gonna have to do it."
Wow. I mean, Keemstar as well has been in, as far as YouTube goes, has been in a lot of reports and bits and pieces over the time. He kind of did his, he's obviously kind of like an internet personality, like a character that you kind of love to hate in some respects. But when he DMs you that kind of middle of the night, you must have been buzzing as well. The fact that that happens, you're thinking, hold on a second, this is talk about the branding and how this is kind of bigger for like the wider world beyond Fortnite. Wembley Arena, by the way, fighting in front of a live crowd, that must have been like super scary, but at the same time, like unbelievably exciting.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was so surreal. Like, I just couldn't, get my head around it. Like, I'm gonna go fight this American in Wembley Arena in 2 weeks. I haven't boxed in 10 years. I'm not fit, and I have 2 weeks to prepare. And it was a time where, like, I actually had to like, there are people that would go in and lose and do it for the experience, whatever. But I actually had to look inside myself and be like, I don't know, like, you're the man, Arch. You will do this. And I basically, it was the most painful 2 weeks of my life. Like, wake up in the morning and run 3 miles, and that was at 108 kilo, I think I was, and it was agony. I mean, instant blisters all over my feet. It was horrible, and it was slow. And then in the evening, I'd go boxing. So I trained twice a day. And it got to the point 3 or 4 days in, all I could do all day was just lay down in bed. Like, I couldn't do anything else. And then it would get to the morning, and I'd go, right, headphones in, walk out the gate, music in, 3 mile. And there used to be this, there's a road near my parents' house. We live in the woods, and it's like the biggest hill. And I used to play the Rocky music running up the hill. And I never managed to run up it without stopping. And then one of the last training sessions before the event, I put my music in, and I was like, "There is no way I'm stopping on this hill," and I ran up the whole thing. I know that. I mean, you don't know the hill, but it is a big road. It is horrible. But that was
It's a
my
hill.
training. Yeah, it's a big hill. It
Well,
actually.
it's a bit, yeah. That's. Because I'm interested to know, like, when Keemstar drops you that DM and he's like, "Look, I want you to fight. You're fighting at this person." Is he there saying, "Here's the offer in terms of like, here's what we're going to compensate you for"? Is he saying that the clout alone is going to be one of the reasons you do this? Like, what is it, like a package deal or something? I don't know how that works.
So I was like, "Yeah, what is the money?" So they offered me $5,000, but
Okay.
I have to pay my medical bills out of that, which was probably $2,000. And then by the time I've sort of sorted my coaches out and got the trains up to London, blah blah, you're earning basically nothing. But he said, in your second fight, you'll get 15K. Then if you're a big name, we'll boost it up. So there's me going, "Wow, I'm never playing Fortnite again. I'll do a bit of streaming and just go fight everyone." And even my dad was like, "This is a great life, because as a professional boxer, you have to fight professionals. You get your head hit quite a lot. It's not healthy. It's bad. If I go make a living fighting YouTubers, mate, like, that is great." But yeah,
Yeah.
so that's literally, like, it was so, the messages from Keemstar, sorry, were so, like, like, not business, like, informal. Yeah, just do this, do that. Do you know what I mean? And it was like, I actually annoyed him once because I was messaging him too much. But obviously, I'm gassed about the fighting. To him, he's like this big. And I messaged him like, "Oh, look, I want a load of my mates to come anywhere. I can get like 40 tickets, and I'll sell them." And he said, "Right, I'll let you know." And then about 2 hours later, I said, "Any news?" And he replied something like, "What? Do you know how busy I am? I'm trying to put this whole show on, and I'm so busy. Don't message me unless it's absolutely necessary." Blah 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 blah. And I was just like, "Fucking hell! You've just asked me to fight at Wembley, mate." And he did, mate. He didn't have, he didn't know the size of the gloves. He didn't know the timing for the rounds. He didn't know if it was 2 or 3 minutes. He didn't know fuck all. And I was like, "I'm gonna fight at Wembley Arena, and you know nothing." And then he had a go at me, and I was like, "Oh, sorry, mate, no problem. You get on with it." And then he kind of was like, "Sorry, I blew up you there. I'm just so busy." Yeah, that was that.
Mate. That because I think and yet at the same time you're thinking, okay, I'm investing in things like, not only put myself through kind of hell here, but I'm investing in getting those trainers and doing the diet
Yep,
bits and this and that.
yep,
I'm putting a lot of money out here to do this.
yep.
Whereas for him, he's like, that's $5,000 is nothing. You're like, well, no, it is something.
Yeah, yeah. And also fighting is like, I want to know what's going on. I wanted to know every detail, obviously. And he had none of them. Like literally, he had none of them.
Yeah.
So yeah, but 5K in the, yeah, 5K, I was just like, and he promised me, he said, "Look, if you knock the geezer out, I'll sign you to Happy Punch tomorrow." So I was like, right, okay, well, let's give
Wow.
it a go. Yeah,
So a goal scoring bonus.
yeah, literally. But he was like, "I don't think it's possible. This geezer's really tough, and he's from America, and he's trained for ages." So yeah, I mean, the odds were very, very heavily against me.
Were you concerned about him, like who you were fighting? Were you kind of more into like, I know that I know my worth. I know that I can hold my own here, so I don't really care. I'll just do what I do best.
um, no, I didn't give a shit about the bloke. I was fine. I had a look at him. I had a look at his Instagram, and I was like, "This, he's like an Instagram boxer. Everything he does is flashy for Instagram." Um, he, yeah, and I was like, right, brilliant. I was actually so happy, and I found one of his fights on YouTube, and I was like, fuck yeah, let me fight this geezer. Like, I'm in no danger here, and I believe, like, truly, I was in no danger. My issue is that boxing takes an unbelievable amount of cardio, and I didn't have time to get the cardio that I needed or the experience, like the sparring experience. That was the issue for me, and it was just that I know I'm going into this, and even though in my head I want to win, and I know that I fought before and I've done this and done that, there is no way you can get fit enough for this fight. So how the hell are you going to do well in it? Do you know what I mean?
So when you got because I remember seeing online that you got some medical news, didn't you? And you were like, you had to pull out of the fight. Walk us through that. Like what happened?
Yeah. So I did 2 weeks of training, and basically the whole time I was managed to do my sparring. I had such a headache from all the training, and I wasn't eating much, and I was suffering so hard. And then 2 days before the fight, I just get this text saying, like, this is from Keemstar, and it says, "I have horrible news. Your MRI didn't pass. You have damage to your brain." And that's it. That's all I get. And it's like,
When we talk about scariest message ever. I mean,
yeah.
that's
It was
yeah.
like it was like my whole, I can't describe the feeling of like just like my whole world was shaking. Like I don't know. It's like getting a message probably saying someone's died. Do you know what I mean? It's just like wow, an instant fear, panic. And like realistically the hospital should have called me, and I should have been told straight away. And then it's like Keemstar texted me that and then threw his phone in the bin because he didn't reply for about half hour. So I'm sitting there panicking with my parents.
My God.
And
So that could literally have meant anything.
yeah, well, originally I thought it was that I spied my brother and he hit me too hard. I had a bit of a mark on my head and he hit me quite hard, and I must have had a bit of trauma to my brain because I'd had headaches for 2 weeks. I thought, it all makes sense now. And and my dad was like, nah, as a kid. So basically, I had a scan of my nose, and they found a little mole on the side of my brain, like a benign little mole. And my parents never told me because they didn't want me worrying about it. But he was like, "No, you had something as a kid. It must be that." So I was like, "Oh, okay, that's fine." But what damage? I was like, "What damage?" Like, he said, "I've got damage to my brain." And then I finally got hold of him, and once again, he didn't know fuck all. Like, he didn't know. The hospital just said, "Oh, you're gonna have to." He said, "Who did you email to do the medicals?" And I said, "Where's the person from Miss Smith?" He said, "I'll email her, and she'll give you someone to talk to." So he didn't even have the fucking information. He sent me that message. And interestingly, the person he was with at the time, I met out in Thailand. And apparently when he found out, he was like, Keemstar was freaking out, going, Jesus, this fighter's gonna die. Like, he's got brain damage, blah 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 blah. Like, but it was not like, anyway. Finally, had to email in, and I'm panicking, and I am actually trying to keep myself calm. And I'm thinking, fuck me, is there something seriously wrong with me? Like, do I have a serious, am I going to die? And I managed to get the number of a doctor, typing the number into the phone. I'm like shaking, and I'm like calling. I didn't want to call the doctor because I was terrified of what he had to say. And I mean terrified. And answering the phone, it was like I had to force myself to answer the phone. And it turns out I have a cyst in my brain. Like, it's called an arachnoid cyst. It was nothing to do with the mole. At the back of my brain, back left side, there's like a little sac where my brain hasn't fully developed properly. Like, nothing too serious. Like 1 in 100 people have them, or 1 in 2, or something like that. It's a little cyst filled with fluid. And the reason you can't box is because if you get a hematoma, which is like a bleed in the brain, and it's into the cyst, obviously the cyst gets bigger, it puts pressure in. So that's why you can't box. But yeah, I didn't, do you know what I mean? Like, and then I found out the information, and I actually originally thought that I could still fight. At some point I said, like, if I got it checked by a doctor, could I still fight? And I did all the tests, and it turns out I can't fight.